Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have a top 16 breakdown for the PPG Pre-Nationals case tournament they had this past weekend. It was over 200 players, and we've got this top 16 that we see here today. And a couple of things before we get started. First, shoutouts to PPG for not only running the event and also streaming it, which is on their Twitch right now and maybe in their YouTube next couple of days. But big shoutouts for getting the deck list out as well on their website, which is linked here in my document and is right here as well. You guys can check that out. But then also, I do want to just personally say thank you to all of my new members here on YouTube. It really does help me out as a content creator, and you do get access to a bunch of my live streams. And I've been doing a lot more of those lately, specifically for One Piece, and you get access to those there. So I do want to just shout out specifically Moonbrion, Luca, In-Game TV, The Warrior, Robert Joe, Matthias, Matthew, William, Daniel, and Potato Power for being our recent ones. I really do appreciate the support, and I hope you guys have been enjoying the membership tier as well. But jumping into this event in general, we do have this top 16 of 8 Sakazuki, 3 of the Purple Luffy, 2 Katakuris, 1 Enel, 1 Starter Deck 10 Trafalgar Law, and 1 copy of Edward Newgate. And it's honestly what we've been seeing. I think most people will agree that we kind of have a 4-leader meta with Sakazuki, Enel, Katakuri, and Purple Luffy. With Sakazuki being kind of the edge of it being probably the best deck of them all, if not just the deck that gets the best representation in a top 16 break like this one. I think most tournaments, if not all of them in the English meta, have had Sakazuki just taken the most, the biggest slice of the pie in most of the times. And it ended up winning this event. And it was just the entirety of the top 4, which is pretty crazy. And then also just looking at the leader breakdown, like 75% are these 4 leaders. So I think these are the leaders. Like if you want to be kind of confident that your leader can top, I think if you choose one of these 4, it's in a good spot for you. And then just kind of a bunch of hopefuls, which again were the Law and the Newgate for this event as well. So honestly, I don't know what the 5th best deck is in this meta. I know a lot of people have been saying, what their fringe guesses are. I think Newgate might be one of the closer ones there. I know people are believing in Zoro. I think Red Purple Luffy and Law are in there as well. But I haven't kind of decided on that one either. But again, it's mostly these 4. And if you want to have any success, you have to know what your matchups are for these 4 in the long term. So again, this was 219 players. It was 7 rounds of Swiss. No top cut for this event, but we do have these top 16 here. So we're going to go over the top placing list for each one of these leaders, starting off with their first place list, which is Cameron's version of Sakazuki. And I'm going to mean this in like the nicest way possible, but this is probably the most generic or like the best like starting list for Sakazuki. Not a lot of spice, but honestly, like this is like the standard build, I think, in a lot of ways. Something that looks very similar to this. Most people will have their ratios and their 1 or 2 of tech cards, but this is the build that I think if I was going against the deck, this is what I would expect all the time. Like these are all the cards that I would expect to be standard in this way. So Rebecca and Rob Lucci, I think, are in there quite a bit. Borsalino there too. I think the weakest cards are the Kuzan and the Hina. I think both these are kind of tech choices, at least these ones. This Hina, for sure, you run 4 of it, but we also do have 2 copies of Sabo, which I do think this is a really good card that some people are maybe undervaluing. The fact that this gets around a lot of, like, this is like the ultimate blocker for us. There's not a lot of interaction against a lot of decks outside of the mirror match with it, which they can Hound Blaze it away. But other than that, our Borsalino. But either way, being able to protect yourself, so like Purple Kaido can't get rid of this, can't get hit by 200 million volts or Thunderbolt either. I think this is just a really strong card to kind of guarantee that we have our next turn. And we have a lot of ways to find it with Rebecca as well as Monshuri, because it is in that 3 to 5 range for there. So I think that's good. Top end of Borsalino and also 2 copies of Kaido, which I think this is generally at 2 of all the 10 drops that we run. I think Kaido is the more popular across the board. It's just really good for the Enel matchup where you can play this, they can't get rid of it, and you get some card draw since they do try to like starve you out of resources with it. So, and then our 10 events of 4 Houndblaze, 4 copies of Great Eruption, as well as 2 copies of Ice Age. This is I don't think there's any spice, which is nothing wrong with this, but this is like a really good, like, if you want to know what the list of Sakazuki that you're probably going to face more times than not, I think this is a really good one to kind of observe and look at the ratios and stuff. So this is Camera's list, and congratulations for their top 16 with Sakazuki. Next up, we have Katakuri, which is we have Williams' list here, and again, we did see quite a bit of Katakuri in this top cut compared to like people who are running it. Enel, there was a lot of people on Enel, comparatively second most popular, but only one did sneak into that top 16 there. But Katakuri is very aggressive in a lot of ways. It's kind of like the more aggressive and potentially more RNG based version of yellow, in my opinion. You just want to go as fast as you can. You get that 7k leader very easily in a lot of situations, and then obviously 10 drop is quite a good finisher for this deck. I also do want to say, and we'll talk about this in Enel too, but I know Katakuri is a very expensive card right now, but and I have a lot of people in my live streams tell me, "Oh, can I play this deck with only 2 Katakuris? Like, is that fine?" And I think so. Yeah, I think Katakuri is definitely a card that you want a good amount of cards with, but two is a respectable amount for this game, especially since it's searchable off the pudding and the Pero Sparrow, and it's not always the best card on your 8 Dawn turn. So you're perfectly fine with running 2, especially like as much as it. The Katakuri, I don't think you need as much. Enel, you need a little bit more, probably because you're trying to be more control-y, and you kind of need to get back to 1 life more often. But with Katakuri itself, you can play it at 2. I don't think that's a big issue with it either. But generally from that, I think this is pretty standard for what it is. We have the Charlotte Cracker, 2 copies there. Sanji, the Satori, and Gadatsu, so a couple of the Sky Island cards. And then 4 Thunderbolts and 3 copies of 200 million volts. So a little bit greedy on that, but these are both very good cards for you too. So this is the list here, and congratulations to William for their finish there. Next up, we have Joe with Purple Luffy. And currently, I've been doing a lot of testing of Purple Luffy on my live stream. It's going to be my stream today, as of this video comes out at 11 a.m. Mountain Time, so 10 a.m. PST or 1 p.m. EST. But I've been doing some testing. I did it yesterday. We'll do it again today. And I kind of, the more I get into this meta, the more I don't super like Purple Luffy personally, just because it is kind of in this spot where it has all of the answers to any situation, but you have to have it in your hand when that situation arises, right? You don't have a lot of ways to help your consistency. Like the only real card draw that we have is Queen, and you don't do Queen until like you're at 10 Dawn or close to it, which is kind of this more late game cycling if you get there, and not as much as you don't play this card on turn 5 like ever, right? Because you can't afford the ramp to lose it. So other than that, I think the deck is good in a lot of ways, and it can like it's just really linear. Really linear is kind of my issue with it in a lot of ways. But I do like what it does. And I think like obviously like if you go second going into Magellan and then use the effect, and the next turn you play Poly, you go to 8 Dawn afterwards if you use your leader effect twice, and then you can do something like use this Captain Kidd and Queen, or you can use a copy of Kaido to get rid of something on their board and attack in. Like these are really strong cards, and it's a really strong strategy that some decks just can't overcome. But if you don't see those cards, which is going to happen more often than not sometimes, it's going to be, you're just kind of not doing anything. And sometimes too, like you don't have like your top end there as well. Also in this build, we're not playing the 7-drop Eustace Captain Kidd. At this point, I don't think the card is good in the deck. I think too many decks have answers to it that it's not very effective. It's going to be worse in hand than useful. So I think Urashima at least is like a 1k counter, and your opponent might not try to get rid of it. And if it stays on board, like 9k is pretty substantial. It can trade into some good things, or just hit your opponent pretty hard, and it's a solid card for that too. So I don't have much more to say about this deck. I think it's a little linear for my likings at times, but it is very strong, and congratulations to Joe for their finish there. Next up, we have Enel, and I think generally Enel is my favorite deck at this current point in this meta. I like the play style for it. I know it is yellow, and I know a lot of people say that's RNG based, but I honestly find like there's a lot of decision making for this deck, and it's you do get rewarded from luck at times, but it's not as bad as Katakuri. And I think like if you put yourself in the position to get lucky, you get rewarded for it too. But I don't know, it's a good deck in a lot of ways, and I do like the play style for it. So this is looking pretty similar. I think my current build is looking pretty similar to this. The differences I would make is that I don't think Sure should be at 4 copies. It is a good card, but it does put a lot of your really good cards to the bottom of your deck, including your Yamatos and your Katakuris. So I think I like running this as 2. And if you kind of think of this instead of like your early game searcher, but more so of your 5th and 6th copy of Shirahoshi, that's kind of my mindset for it. But it is a good card, and the fact that you can put it back with Katakuri, especially since 10 Dawn, play Shura, search something, Katakuri, put it on top. I think that's good. The only issue with Sure is that it can't find any cards that can put more cards into your life, and that's kind of where the issue is in my mind. But generally, like most Enel lists that I see are the Sky Island version, and I rarely see any of the Big Bomb Pirates version. Charlotte Katakuri 4-drop I think has been more popular, and it's been less of a tech choice and more of a main deck contender for a lot of people. The fact that it does look at the cards at life, and it usually gets rushed because you are a 4-life leader and you are pretty much taking hits early game, is very strong. So I think that's good. 2 copies of Enel, 1 copy of Linlin, which is, I think 1 copy of Linlin's fine. This does kind of put a lot of pressure at the right times too. I like Enel a little bit more, but I think it's not an issue running 1 or 2 copies of that. And then only 4 copies of the events, which is a little bit lower than I like, but if they show up at the right time, especially since 200 million volts is super searchable with 4 copies of Shura, it can still do the damage and get you that win in this spot. So this list here for our player of Abdulraham, and congratulations for their finish with Enel. Next up, we have our Trafalgar Law. So this is Faraz' version of it, and we don't see a lot of this guy. Usually gets like 1 or 2 tops. Like it gets like a top every other event, I kind of feel like, for the stuff that I cover. It is a really tempting deck. It does get a lot of value for a lot of things, and it is unlike a lot. Like it's really unique. There's no deck that's like it right now in this game, where you just kind of play out a bunch of these 5k bodies and you try to use your leader effect to get like just a tempo. It's just really tempo at all cost. And if you're able to get there, you're in a good spot. And if you're not, then you usually run out of cards pretty quickly. So I don't see a lot of people playing this Trafalgar Law right now because it is a little bit tricky for it to get its effects sometimes. But also, there's not a lot of Heart Pirate cards that you actively want to find with it. So unless this card pool gets better, I think this card is just okay. It is one of the few ways we do get to draw in this deck, but again, like its searches are just a little bit lackluster for me. We do also get like we have like the ulti page 1 combo in this build, which you could use the Trafalgar Law to play the ulti to play the page 1, which is quite nice. And then just kind of a lot of the usual suspects we see in a lot of ways. We do have a good amount of removal in 4 copies of Fire Fist and 2 copies of Gamma Knife, as well as 4 copies of the Eustace Captain Kidd, which I do like with this leader, and a swag copy of Monkey.D.Luffy, which it is tough to get like full value of this card because you have to play it outright, and you don't really generally have 2 Dawn. Like getting the 7 Dawn to make this an 8k unblockable is actually pretty tough for where you're at, but it's a good card, and it does get past a lot of blockers if you're able to get there. So also just a 5-cost 6k rush card is just great for tempo too. So don't have much more to say, but congratulations to Faraz for their finish there. And our last one is Carlos with Edward Newgate. And I would be the first to admit that I think Newgate is strong, but not I know metas ago, I thought Newgate was the best deck in the format, which it was, and I was a little bit worried when we lost all the restrictions for it going to this meta that it would be good again, especially since I think a lot of North Americans do like playing Newgate in general, but it hasn't really seen that amount of success for these events. It also hasn't really there's only like a handful of people on the deck in general. I'd say like 5% or less of people are on it. For this event, I think there's like 3 or 4 people on it, but I do think it does have a good amount of aggression. It does potentially have a really good Sakazuki matchup because you play so many cards with Rush, which is really good. I do think like yellow is a bit of a tough matchup for it based on how aggressive it is, and like sometimes purple Luffy can too. But it is kind of, I don't know, it's pretty linear, but it's as terms of like pure aggression and cards with Rush, I think Newgate is like the one for that. We have like a copy of Zora. We have 3 copies of Rush Luffy. We have the new Sanji, as well as the Ace. So we have a lot of ways to fight for board, but also get like these cards out. Nico Robin is like one of the best cards to answer Rebecca. They played 4 Dawn for a blocker, and you pay 1 for Nico Robin, which is searchable from the Nami. The fact that you can also buff it late game with Makino, I think is a really good card for this meta if you're able to play it. And you don't really have any more removal, except for like sometimes Ace can get something in range of Nico Robin as well, so that's something good for you too. But I think like, and obviously Otama, Nico Robin if you need to, but yeah, it's pretty linear. You're just really aggressive with the deck, and we do get the benefits of having Rad Beam and Newgate and all your Marcos at 4 copies if you need to. But I do think that some decks are able to kind of hold their own against the storm of aggression from this deck at times, and it's definitely not as big of a threat as it used to be, which is good in my opinion. But I do like that it is still able to top these events too. So that's going to be it for this event. For this one, again, thank you to PPG for running the event, as also publishing the deck list for it as well. We don't have a lot of time until Cardfest, so make sure to look out for more content there. Make sure to check out my live streams too. Again, thank you to all my YouTube members, and I'm going to catch you all next time.